This lesson is about transmitting energy, and by the end of this lesson you should be able to describe how electricity is transmitted through the national grid, explain why electrical energy is transmitted at such high voltage, and also understand the role that transformers play. But before we begin, have a go at these efficiency questions. They quite often, in exam questions, will link the energy efficiency to transmission of electricity. A hint here is to change the percentages into a fraction before you begin. So here are the answers to the starter questions. As you can see, by putting the percentage into a decimal, it makes it much easier to rearrange the equations, and then all you need to do at the end is times it by 100 in order to get it back into a percentage for the answer. So this is a diagram of the national grid, and you need to look at and be able to label this diagram. So if we start at the beginning, we've got our power station where electricity is generated. Once the electricity is generated, they then use a step-up transformer, and we'll look at those in more detail, but basically they step up the voltage, and so they produce this very high voltage, which is how electricity goes through the national grid system and through the pylons. Once it gets to its destination, there's a step-down transformer, and these step-down transformers are there to make sure that the voltage is stepped down to a safe level. So for our homes, that's 230 volts. For light industry, it's around 11 kilovolts, and for heavy industry, it's still 33 kilovolts. Transformers. There are two types of transformers in the national grid. The first one is a step-up transformer, and that will increase the voltage. And what this does is it reduces the current, and that means that less energy is wasted in the wires through thermal energy, because if there was a high current, then the wires would get extremely hot, and this would lose a lot of energy due to heat going out into the environment. And so they step up the voltage in order to reduce that current and reduce energy loss. But of course, if that was to come into our homes, it would be extremely dangerous. So before that happens, there's a step-down transformer, and that steps down the voltage into a level which is safe for us to use. So hopefully you now have an understanding of how electricity is transmitted through the national grid, and you should be able to label that diagram. You should also understand why it's so important that we have high potential energy going through the wires in order to reduce that energy loss, and also understand the role of those transformers in stepping up the voltage and stepping down the voltage. And there's another video on transformers for you to watch which does a recap on what they are and how they work.